It's my pleasure to introduce the moderator of this session, and the heart of this session is about the benefit of TAACCCT grants for faculty and students. And the moderator is Susan Bigelow, who's to my right. She is with Northern Wyoming Community College District. Susan is a graduate of California Polytechnic, and she worked in economic development at Spearfish, South Dakota, and then worked in economic development at Gillette, one of the campuses in the Northern Wyoming district, and now she's in Sheridan. And her title actually is Vice President for External Relations and Economic Development. So she will be our moderator, and we have just an outstanding panel from across the nation again, and I think you're going to find it very interesting. So let's welcome the panel and Susan.
Sandra, thank you very much for your comments. And my boss, Dr. Paul Young, who is the incoming president for ATEA, can't remember my title either. So, and one day, as I was introducing myself to a group, I couldn't remember it, so it's okay. I often call it Vice President of Other, and many of you have people at your campuses who have roles like that as well. One of my roles at the college is to ensure that we receive state and federal grants for some of our innovations. I'm sure many of your colleges are like ours, that without those infusions of dollars from donors, state grants, and federal grants, we're unable to fund those innovative practices that we know are needed, that our employers are telling us are needed. And so the TAACCCT grants from the Department of Labor have been very influential, very useful in funding some of those innovative practices. So I just wanted to give some of you who may not know a little bit of background on the TAACCCT grants. They're the Trade Adjustment Assistance Community College Career Training Grants. And the funding source is from the Trade Adjustment Act that provides assistance for displaced workers that are displaced when the jobs that they did have go overseas, either different companies or competitors overseas taking over what were U.S. jobs. And so the focus of the TAACCCT grants was to assist displaced adult workers. And it's very important that it was focused on adult workers, not on recent high school graduates, but on adult workers who had been employed and needed to get back into jobs fairly quickly with skills that were in demand by local employers. And so that was really the focus of the TAACCCT grants, and each of us took different approaches in our TAACCCT grants based on our local economy, the workers in our area, and the industries in our area. One of the real benefits of the TAACCCT grant program was that there was a minimum set aside per state. So every state has some college that received some funding, at least $2.5 million in each of the rounds. There were 4 rounds of TAACCCT grants. The last rounds were awarded last year, yes. And the first rounds were awarded in 2011. So in June of 2011, someone from all of our colleges was working on, or April, May, were working diligently on grant applications, trying to figure out exactly what the Department of Labor was asking for. And in fact, the Department of Labor quits talking to you when they have an announcement on the street. And so we were talking to each other trying to figure this out. And the Department of Labor encouraged college consortia. In some states, that's easy to implement. In other states, that was difficult to implement. And some of the projects have consortia that cross state lines. And so for a 3-year grant, sometimes just getting organized took about half of the time. Let's see. And another aspect of the Department of Labor was tracking the completers of these programs into their employment, which is more of a challenge than it sounds like it is. And using evidence-based strategies. The Department of Labor had never asked us for evidence-based strategies before, or asked us to look at the academic experiments to justify what we knew were good ideas. And they encourage open educational resources. They're listening to the rhetoric about the increasing cost of textbooks. and they're asking us to develop educational resources, publish those so that others can go out and pull them down and use them. And that's a great idea, but a new concept in many of our colleges. So we are coming to the end of the period for these first round of grants. So are we tired? We have learned a lot, and we have learned a lot with the Department of Labor. If you're in the midst of this, you've noticed that with each subsequent round of grants, they have made some changes based on our experiences from the previous rounds, but they have not changed the requirements for the previous rounds. And so round one has really been that guinea pig of how do we encourage consortia, how do we track employment, how do we do open educational resources. So I have asked each of these panelists, and by the way, thank you, Sandra, for giving me the opportunity to put together a panel, because these are 4 people I want to hear from. And as they talk about what their challenges are and what the benefits are, and I ask them each to focus on for our faculty and our students. So not about the administrators or the grant writers, but really about faculty and students, and what are the advantages of their project and what are the benefits of their projects for faculty and students. So we're going to start on my far left. First, let me tell you who we have here. Glen Roberson, who is with Ivy Tech. On my furthest left, Ray Gunn, who is with Demand Project Director at United Tribes Technical College in Bismarck, North Dakota. And then to my right, Dr. Jillian Gableman with Track 7, a project I've heard a lot about and I'm really looking forward to hearing about from you. And John Sutton, who's from my own institution, working on the TAACCCT 1 grant. So we're going to start far left with Glen Roberson. Thank you, Glen.
Really I was working about and I can go over some things that I put together and looking at the food that now at statewide now have to talk about mediation as well as structured scheduling and block programs, service learning, and community out. I have a really small video that I'm very proud of that those students did getting back to the student projects with real world relevance. We've got a little bit of competition to see a little bit small review of the electric vehicle bill parts department of review trying to complete the national program. And now all of our IDPAC involved with this thing as the full-blown TV program that they will be building right now, building the energy plenary, the development of smart pages, contextualizing the mathematics that we built up as well. And also the equipment upgrades and the faculty professional development. We feel that we don't have state-of-the-art equipment throughout the state, and the certified professional development potential practice that it would be hard for us to make index that we are the top college. So that's one of our big goals we've been doing on the statewide line. That's really paying off well because consistency, and that lends to several of us that have been working on the Blackboard, the learning management system, and that is the classroom model for teaching our class. What we're doing there is instead of having silos, developing, making their own exams, having the outcome assessments being built up in these regions, we now have the Blackboard cells and the work in progress that the strength of having a statewide system where we have 100 electricians. We load all of them on the state-of-the-art, top-notch best practices, lab Excel that have simulation, we partner with manufacturers, with vendors, with replacement experts. They'll be able to have that day one or have access to completely all online, not taken away from the lab. In fact, that was a big concern, as you know, on the gambling person as well. That's going to give them more time. That's what it's doing. I borrowed this from our president. I'm just amazed at the transactions going up. So it's looking at 43% of our licensing certificates doing more than 27% of our licensing certificates doing more than a bachelor's. And then going on to 31% of our associate degree doing more than a bachelor's. What we're doing is we're stacking the credentials, but we're also stacking the certificates, the TC, technical certificates, and the associate. Students never lose a credit, but they will also be able to exit out and then ramp back on it as they need to give them that flexibility. Part of the big grant, we have another grant that was supported by the law. The IDEA Technology. This is the pilot program that helped mold what I'm talking about in the tech program. Quickly going over the statistics, you will see that very small compared to Ivy Tech. Totally had we tracked through that until we expanded it statewide, and then we're starting back in the community. You can see we started out about 57% retention, and then we started averaging close to 80% as our cohorts kind of learning and improving from our program. Talking about certifications, we are strong in certifications. And we see that the competency aligned with the everybody in here has advisory boards. We take that a step further. We have strong advisory boards, but we want the national AWS, they take national advisory board data. So now we have the best of both worlds. We have the Indiana data, we have the national. We know it's based off of our advisory boards and our national accreditation bodies. And the validation, we just went through the accreditation in Indiana. I was just studying honesty. Critical to have a way to improve our program. And advisory boards, surveys, we can do that. Also looking at how we're doing with the pass rate on the certificate and being able to improve upon it. To give you a quick example of what our group comes across here, we had you wouldn't think that our associate degree students would have problems with that was so low. There was anything with department control, other areas that we thought they might be a little concerned. They were failing the blueprint. So this was about 2 years ago. We looked at the record practice during the planning session. We determined that we were teaching very good. We were really doing a good job of contextualizing that throughout our curriculum. So the students 2 years later, they didn't know what mention was, they just really didn't have a good grasp. What we're doing now is we're contextualizing the project base. You see the fabrication. We got a drafting board, and we essentially made all of that. We have to do what we continue doing what we have to do. We may take that step. We saw the increase. It's amazing. We still have improvement. We're working on it. It's amazing just by doing that contextualization. So we are sold on contextualization. We think that not loading them with 5 or 6 content classes at the same time, building upon that, that's why we're doing a mixture of the 18 and 16. And that helps us with the continuous improvement. Building partnerships, student success, We have several partnerships. The Campus one, that's an AWS, I think, one video program. We really have adopted the same program at the high school level. We've adopted the program at the program. So you can see that there's a strong partnership with ATEA because they will seamlessly come in and continue on to get to the group. And the validation process, you will see all of our students now taking the OSHA certification. And that's another validation that we can make our hat high because we've done a great job on that. This is welding that we can add into the facility that we have. And then AWS certification, that is the national recognized internet certification. And the welding on bridges, you will have to make sure that and fabrication community part of it, you'll see consistent of these things that you're doing, but you're doing that. Imagine how much trigonometry is involved in that. If we tell them to go to class and learn trigonometry, they're going to run the other way. If we build that into the curriculum and help contextualize and support and move forward in our tech class, they'll see the relevance. Of course, we in the public school, we still have to do problems for those problems and research and problems. And I just put some things down looking at this particular one here. States are members on this particular section. AWS, we're on their website, maybe sectors, there's an industry that calls upon them. They're going to refer them to our centers that are certified. We have 10 throughout the state. And we get them to that way as well, because they know that we can do the whole accreditation process with the welding that we meet the standards of the national conference. And that shows you that that's an overall picture of what our state is. It's not just technology. We have nursing medicine that focus on certification. Here's our AWS. Give you a snapshot of showing you the pathways. Some are better than others. What we do is that we come into the brainstorm and we say, what is causing us to do that? And we have a survey that our central IR does a great job that we can go down into the deep weeds and find out exactly what. The multi-student projects that I just said makes a difference in many ways.
Five effective nonstop volunteers working on the ship's deck today. Other students from Ivy Tech are repairing parts of a piece of history that have rusted due to weather over the years. Eyewitness News' Joe Bird was there and joins us now live down on the riverfront. Hello, Joe.
Hey, Brad. Well, of course, you can expect repairs are needed to the LST as it's more than 70 years old. And so volunteers are always welcome to come aboard and make improvements. So when the crew joined, got on board today with their welding equipment, you can bet they were greeted with open arms. These students were not born when this great ship hit the seas in 1942. Since her construction, she has seen many parts of the world and all kinds of climates, which have taken a toll. Rust can be seen on many parts of the ship, and that's where Ivy Tech instructor John Durbin felt the need to step in and volunteer.
I was here for a tour, and the tour guide said they needed volunteers and had some welding to do, and so I gave him my business card, and they called me in a couple of days.
While this is a learning experience for students, it brings them to a sense of meaning, something that isn't felt in a classroom.
Yeah, it means a lot, actually. We actually remember now, we pay a little fee, and you can volunteer anytime you want. I volunteer anytime I have. I mean, it's a history. You don't want that to die.
My dad's a veteran, and I know it meant a lot to him. His face lit up when he found out I was out here.
And for Nicole, an even closer meaning to her heart.
I'm finding out this boat was built by women, So I think that made me a little more excited about it. to find out, that this boat was built by women.
And one of those women from years ago decided to visit the LST 325 when it was out sailing, not knowing what she'd find.
In Pittsburgh, we had a lady come aboard that remembered working on this very ship when it was built in Philadelphia. And she came aboard in a wheelchair, and she looked around, and she smiled, and she said, I welded that.
That's what makes volunteering rewarding for Robert.
I really enjoy working on the ship and being an instructor.
So whether you clean, cook, paint, or weld, LST 325 and its crew would love to see you help keep the ship a floating piece of history.
Now, John says that each of his students will work about 30 to 40 hours with a combined total of near.
You can see that is a big priority with student engagement. Flying to what? Making sure that we bring them all. This is another one. We have a now statewide flight test. Indiana, but the Bowling Green with a lot of 4 years. And this is the electric vehicle. And probably if I ask some people to sign up in 5 years, we've completely revamped our automotive curriculum to embed all of the hybrid electric vehicle technology. Very expensive. Very small. What you see there is only doing the breaking the whole system in case they don't have a hybrid Prius or any kind of new thing. They get to the university with people that really detailed into the full-blown electric. You see that they're working on batteries, so we have the welding group that's helping students with you can see that there's a tedious job in doing the welder in your tubing and weld it out there. My students did do it. And they really liked that help actually. That was one that I helped them do. And he was the only one that the event that had that. So 3D printer, put a little model out on there, so design folks do that. The last part I want to talk about is what we call a strong component of remediation, technical math, and our workplace communication, and our soft skills for our workplace. You'll see those all throughout. You'll see competencies all throughout our technical program. But on the same side, you want student competencies on the learning. I always have an opportunity to present. So I always talk about ID Tech has no title because we have our foundation, that's our new version of the remediation. We use a lot of hands-on, one that I was doing. We have our class that we feel is very important with our new Blackboard classroom model and get them comfortable with the Blackboard look. As an HVAC student, and my class, we have to sit down all the time. And that's inside class, that is really the time work in progress. You're going to see some positives and we're seeing a lot of excitement throughout the state. Just duplication and hard to something I'm doing quickly. We're building, as we build the Blackboard, we're putting all types of support mechanisms. So we're going to do this at 2 o'clock in the morning about this component of that component. Everything that we're doing, we're making sure that they show how it's used to do this. What our future of our tech program we have in something, for example, we have 10 automated. Prior to this, they were built with mostly electric. So when the industry hired somebody with an automated system, they wouldn't quite now we have instructor programming TCs that we have on the statewide website. Here's the competency. All industry knows exactly what certification, what competency, if they're hired and hired and so forth.
Thank you, Glenn. I have some questions that I wrote some notes about. So I encourage you to have some questions at the end of the 4 presentations. We'll entertain questions here, and then this is the beginning of the conference, so you'll be able to visit with these folks all throughout the conference as well. Our next presenter is Ray Gunn with the Demand Project from North Dakota. And Ray.
Good afternoon. My name is Ray Gunn. I'm the Demand Project Director for the Tribal College Consortium for Developing Montana and North Dakota Workforce, which includes 4 tribal colleges, which is led by United Tribes Technical College in Bismarck, North Dakota, Nakota College on the Fort Peck Indian Reservation in Harlan, Montana, Fort Peck Community College on the Fort Peck Reservation in Poplar, Montana, and Chandeska-Chikina Community College on the Spirit Lake Nation in Fort Totten, North Dakota. And I just want to add that we are the only consortium that is fully consists of tribal colleges. There are other consortiums that have, but they're not fully run by the tribal colleges. But the large Bakken oil field in northwest North Dakota and northeast Montana has spurred the need for skilled workers in the oil field. And not only that, but the need to build up infrastructure to support those oil field workers and the families moving in the region. The project has developed or enhanced over 20 programs consortium-wide, which include short-term and certificate training. And that has been a promising strategy for our project because we have short-term training that lasts anywhere from 3 days to 2 weeks. And then we condensed 1 year of training into 16 weeks. And that has been very successful for our students because we get them in, we get them out. Our instructors are concentrated on teaching the skills needed in the region. So we're not teaching them something that, we're teaching them exactly what the region is wanting. And therefore, we've had completion rates with our short-term training of 72%, and our certificate training, our completion rate is at 51%. And so we want to keep these programs in our schools, but we're looking at that sustainability piece because we are a round 1 recipient.
Yes. Our next project presenter is Dr. Jillian Gableman from Kansas with the Track 7 project. So, Jillian, share with us today.
Thank you very much. As Susan said, I'm from Topeka, Kansas, and work for Washington University, but I actually work at the Technical Institute and is associated with Washington University. This was an affiliation that happened 7 years ago, and it was a new thing for the state. And so when the opportunity to apply for the Round 1 TAACCCT grant came along, the university was actually applied as the lead of a consortium in the state of Kansas. It was the only university that was awarded a TAACCCT grant. And from the institution's point of view, that was a huge advantage because we had the resources of the university to deal with the Department of Labor grant, which I think we would all agree has been quite challenging. I think especially those of us that were round one grantees had my associate Deb McCullough who helped us, who works on the university side and helps with this, talks about it being on the bleeding edge, and I think that is so true with round one. So the consortium was with 4 community colleges, 2 technical colleges, and Washington Institute of Technology, which is the Technical Institute. And the stretched across the state. Kansas is about 200 miles across, and Garden City and Dodge City are in western Kansas. Cloud Community College and Salina Area Tech are in the center of the state, and then Highland, Flint Hills, and Washburn and more to the east of the state. I was entertained this morning when Connie Bean talked about people in the center of the state, and like, not really. But that's because I started my career in western Kansas, so I'm a bit sensitive to that. So our consortium is a little different also in that we had 7 different programs, one at each of the institutions. The idea was that we would look at the commonalities between the 7 institutions because at each institution, probably everybody teaches owns law and electricity course. And we thought that if we could come up with a core curriculum in each of the programs, then we would help a student who's located in western Kansas would be able to take the industrial maintenance program that is at Washington Tech so that the core could be taken at their course. And then we put together 6 mobile labs that will be able to take those lab components out to those students at the institution. And that's been a challenge to get up and going, but we've had some success with it. And I think the huge benefit that has come out of it has been the collaboration between the institutions and breaking down that idea that these are my students and this is my community. So it's been a great benefit from that point of view. As Susan said, these grants were designed to build capacity and to work with adult students that have been dissipated or have low basic skills. And one of the pieces that we embedded very successfully into our project was the IDES model. In Kansas, that's called Accelerated Opportunities, where a student is pre-GED or even has a high school diploma but has low basic skills. And how do you get them to be successful in a highly technical program? And by integrating their basic skills, and we've really talked about that too, with the technical training, we've had a much greater success in them both achieving their GED and going on to achieve credentials. So we have embedded into our programs the stackable credentials and also this AO model that allows the student to start wherever they are and get up and move forward. We have also developed short programs. We have a CPT program, Certified Production Technician, which is 12 credits, and the student can achieve that in 8 weeks. And currently, we're offering that at the Women's Correctional Facility in Topeka, and the students are doing extremely well. And we, again, are doing that same model. We have a technical instructor out there, but we also have an OBE instructor that's helping with the basic skills. And we're having a lot of success with that. And as the women are exiting, they are getting jobs. So that's a huge life change for them. It's always, with an influx of money like this, you always see institutionally it's a great benefit. But I've been amazed at seeing the lives of the students that this has changed. And to me, that's where my heart is. If we're not helping the students, we shouldn't be doing this too. So seeing that in the women and seeing other, we have many stories of individual students who are serving that has given them an opportunity that they would never have. So So I think having the pathways and having this vision so that they can see that if they come on at this point, then they can get through and they can see their way out, or there's a place where they can get a credential and stop out, has been very useful. We've also seen an increase in transfer to the university because as they begin to be successful, then they will build on that and go into the university. So I think that's also been a great thing to our students. So shorter credentialing, and then the last thing that I think has developed out of this that is a huge improvement is our interaction with our employees. One of the other programs that we built at Washington Tech is a short-term welding program, and we have worked with Caterpillar, who makes these huge tools that you can't imagine how big they are. And even though they're out of town, about 50 miles, we have had several students who have made that transition. I know the sophisticated workers who really don't want to move into it, is one of the issues. But because this industry is extremely interested in employing them, they will put them up in a hotel for 6 months if they work, and then they will pay them $1,000 signing bonus, which gives them that 4 months wage. So again, when industry will work with the students like that, it makes a huge difference for them to be able to do it.
Thank you very much. And our last presenter, John Sutton from Northern Wyoming Community College District, talked about our tax framework and one aspect.
My role with the ATEA grant has been primarily as the CPL advisor, specifically military credit for fire learning. And that's really no accident. We're a set of small colleges in northwestern Wyoming, Gillette College and Sheridan College, representing about 4,200 students. We have an extraction industry which is powering our economy, but we also have a fairly high military presence. We have the VA Medical Center close by in Sheridan. We also have a lot of students in the National Guard. So what the tax grant has allowed us to do is build on some strategic initiatives the college has already had in place. We already have we had a Veteran Services Director put into place in 2011. That was very important to this. We also have a Veteran Center. So, and we've been a military-friendly school a designated military-friendly school from 2012 to 2014. So we wanted to, as a way, it was very important to us that we didn't do a lot of work that kind of disappeared when the TAACCCT grant went away. So we wanted to kind of piggyback on some of the strategic initiatives the college was already putting into place that focused on persistence, on completion, on getting our veterans back into the workplace. So there were a couple things that we worked on really quickly, and one of them, and it had me, reading through technical manuals of the Bradley fighting machine and things that you wouldn't expect an English major from Berkeley to be doing. But I think it took a little time, but I think it finally paid off. We matched up core competencies from some of these trainings, from the diesel ordnance trainings from the military to our diesel technology classes at Sheridan College and Gillette College. And this fall, we're going to be able to offer 15 credits to some students who are coming in. And I think that's a huge benefit to those students. It's going to save time, it's going to save resources, it's going to help them complete, it's going to give them motivation to complete. That being said, we also have an initiative for a wellness credit. I talked to a number of our veterans, and one of their number one concerns, it didn't seem like it should have been a huge concern to me, but it was a concern to them, so it became our concern, was that they needed to take wellness classes. And that's a one credit class. It goes with physical education and wellness. It was required from some of them for their degree, but they didn't think that they should be taking it. And so I looked at the competencies of basic military training, mandatory general military training, and tried to match up what we were trying to do in our wellness courses. And it wasn't a complete, going back 15, 20 years, there was some effort by the military for a holistic wellness course, or holistic wellness initiative, but it didn't really take shape until about 2009 with the Army's Comprehensive Soldier Fitness, the Marines had a Semper Fit. So it all kind of revolved around resilience and training, emotionally being prepared, psychologically prepared, being aware of weight, nutrition, blood pressure, all those things that we like our students to be conscious of. So the wellness credit went to students who had been veterans from 2009 and on forward. That's where we drew the line. And it did take a lot of time for that initiative as well. And but I want to maybe take a step back and say and talk about why 1 or 2 credits, given to your veterans is important. It doesn't seem like a lot, but it's not the 15 credits that we might be able to give some of the incoming students in diesel technology, but I think it's really very, very important. I looked at the data from our 2010 to 2014 cohort. The students with credit for prior learning, the student veterans with credit for prior learning were persisting at a rate from one semester of 88%, those without 68%. The student veterans who had credit for prior learning had a GPA of 2.77. Those without credit for prior learning had a GPA of 2.14. So, and I looked at the group, and it wasn't a group of students who had received a lot of credit for prior learning. It's not like they were, all students who had received 12 or 13 credits or anything like that. 77% had received 3 or fewer credits, but yet they were doing much, much better than their counterparts. And I think that's an important lesson to take away from this, that there's, I don't think that the vets are asking for that much, but they want their experiences to be validated by the colleges they're attending. And I think, with some of the efforts we've been doing, we're able to more fully institutionalize what we're doing, and I think that's going to make a huge impact. As Glenn was saying, it's being in the weeds for a long time, but I think we finally reached a turning point where positive results are going to happen from what the TAACCCT grant's doing. I don't think they're going to disappear on September 30th. So I think we're able to continue forward with that, and that's exciting.
Thank you very much, John. Well, I have a couple questions for the group, and then we're going to open it up to questions from the audience. So my first one is, how are faculty engaged in your project, or how have you gotten faculty engaged in your project? So I'll just take volunteers for the first response.
Well, one benefit our faculty is doing is giving back to our young people. And not much people know this at institutions, but our instructors are mentors or confidants, and they have supported students in ways after graduation, putting their name out on the line by taking interviews and letting them say, hey, this is so-and-so. I said this. And also confiding in them, knowing their struggle, because most of our students are coming from the reservation, and it's hard for them to understand the work ethic piece that comes with that, because they're going from training straight to work. And so some of our faculty have been keeping them accountable by clocking in and out. And another opportunity for the faculty was to train on high quality equipment, and our students really did a kick on simulators, welding, and our teaching courses, and also them receiving career and tech training from the state.
I think that's very interesting, right? That instead of the faculty taking attendance, students clock in and out like they would at industry. Others, how have you gotten faculty engaged in this process?
I think when you're evaluating courses that when the reason we evaluate these courses, a lot of you are familiar with the ACE recommendation, American Council on Education. However, the problem is that they don't evaluate all the training that soldiers receive, especially the lower rankings. And those are the majority of the people that really actually need the help, which is kind of ironic. But when you read through these manuals, I'm not an expert in renewable technology, so it does take collaboration with faculty. But I think this has to do with all the transmission and the repair. And these seem to be maybe close to the objectives that we're looking for in your class, but the faculty have to go through both the training manual and look at my recommendations. They have to take an interest in as well.
And they had the opportunity to help become and they wanted.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but Dr. On that
couple our grant equipment capacity building, and we spend a federal budget and they spend quite a bit of time making sure that this is what industry needs, this is what the certifications are required, mapping it back to our competency, so we know as we're teaching that we have the proper equipment that is supported. So I thought that was really positive, and that's going to mold our future of how we handle the equipment. And the other one, I still just praise what they did. We had a town in Indiana that almost got like that. One of the kindergarten, his staff and his instructors and over, and we did some habitat humanity, but they went in and just did whatever HVAC they did, and what they could do with that. And they didn't make credit for it, but just the meaning of what we try to ensure that instructors are doing all of these things.
Well, thank you very much. With each of these grants that are short term, 3 to 4 years, it's always a struggle to really bring something from the grant into the culture of the institution that will be sustained after the grant funding is gone and after the folks who are funded by that grant stop working on that initiative. So what have you seen being successful at your institution? What do you think is going to be carried on because it is now part of the culture of the institution and not just the grant funded part?
I think the accelerated opportunities is in Kansas and certainly in our institutions become institutionalized. We started it in advanced manufacturing, we go to healthcare, we now have it in welding and machine tooling, and we're looking at some other things recently started a learning center which seems like while we have one of those, we didn't. So, and that Advantage Center was directly coming from new state funding that is supporting the federal model as well as the county.
John?
Especially in the third sector, I think the real need for it. And there are often challenges in that we need to do for not just veterans, but for and show that they have
I believe our workforce partnerships will grow stronger because we in order to be sustainable, we need to have that midpoint. So we need to be able to some of our current partnerships have invested in our schools, and so we'd like to keep them. So the relationships between yes.
I think our sustainability is that's from day one or even before we're writing the grant, making sure that we're outlining we understand pilot programming that can do things that we might have to give up and we did in this particular situation here. But we were able to bring the best of what we had with the institute model and expand it to 800 essentially 12,000 tech students. So we knew we were challenging, we still have a lot of challenges ahead of us. So I think our vice president that we are we're not looking back and we're going forward and we have the support of our administration and we think that this is a strong support mechanism with our industry to the ability to fund.
Thank you. We are
otherwise they're not going to stick. They don't see people working, they're looking for work, and they're wonder why they were, why they came out.
Well, in the nature of the PAC grant that Sir John will send you what he's already done, he's learned lessons. even before it's posted.
Will be wonderful. And I think that's the most we mentioned that skills come I'm amazed at people on that there. I think that's the possibility to look at the wrong times changing culture.
I think one of the challenges that I'm looking at is beyond posting. We need to go look in that free resource and pull information back down. So I think that's our next challenge is let's go shop. Let's go shop there, where it's free for us and free for our kids. Yes. Well, that's one of the ahas. Julia, you shared an aha about, well, we should have had a learning center. So what is an aha takeaway from having worked through these sometimes very difficult consortiums, working with the Department of Labor in a program that's been changing and trying to do the best we can for our students and their faculty. So what is an aha from that?
No matter how great you think something is, there's going to be a reason why it's not being done. And I think part of the reason is that it's just not a lot of awareness about all of those activities and why we're doing it. The evidence in accelerated formats, whether it's part of learning experience, really institution maybe a deep understanding of the reasons for changing that. Maybe could be better addressed. I don't know if that run into that a lot. I ran into that a lot.
Seeing strengthening partnerships. Tribal colleges have historically worked closely with communities, and through the MAD project helped build partnerships with non-governmental groups, and I believe that's what partnerships we have in contacts. That was a lot of work. And so I think
that what I would comment on is two things that I through the past instructor and getting them the complaints of students. So why am I going to this math class and I will never ever use this in technology? The same with computer skills, which we know computer skills are very extremely important. It's when I come out of high school that more than some of our instructors, they feel like a lot of complaints are coming up with money getting wasted. So we had completely revamped that. And we're getting so much positive feedback on the students are actually not wanting to leave the math class because they're sharing and talking about transmission. The ratios, they're looking at the gear ratio and looking at the small transmission, larger transmission gears, and you're seeing proportion. There's a lot of things that are being taught that our students embrace. And I just wish Purdue and the engineering program would have taught me that, because that's the type of person that I am. So I think that's probably the aha moment there that I think that we are doing something else.
Okay, now time for questions from you. So you can have a look at your notepad if you wrote it down, or if you just have a question that you would like to ask of any of our panelists. Yeah.
And then maybe one on doing each of those levels of education. So at the end of it,
Well, I know there's other tribal colleges that are part of other consortiums, and I'm not sure what those programs are, but I mean, the demand project has been huge for the colleges involved because our partners, besides Many Tribes Technical College, their role in nature, and so the challenge has been offering those programs. How do we expand them? Because we as the United Tribes, we're the only ones that have housing available for our students, and our partners do not. And so that's been a challenge for us. But demand has been huge in all of the colleges. I mean, if it wasn't for demand, going back to what was mentioned earlier in regards to storytelling, there's a lot of students that say they wouldn't be where they are today if demand wasn't possible.
Right, you have United Tribal College is funded by 5 tribes. You have students from how many tribes?
Well, United Tribes is actually owned and operated by 5 tribes in North Dakota. And at any time, there are over 75 tribes represented at our school.
And so some of that takes back to those tribes. Okay, additional questions? You had a question.
It depends on what the structure grading criteria is. So in some cases they have, in some cases they don't. If they come to class every day and they really try and they've done all the other things that we require them to do and they miss it by 1 point, they're probably going to get C. Obviously if they pass the credential, they pass. So I think it's not arbitrary and it's set up at the beginning.
Question.
The grant is not paying for the testing usually, because that's the tax grant. Well, the second chance tax grant will allow them.
Okay, question for that.
Yeah, I mean, that's not my area, but I do work with ABP over that, and they do the same process that we have. And we have, for example, our family training. Some of those training we have to pass on to the students. So we go through the curriculum committee, we get it approved, we make sure that it's an industry, make sure it means something to the industry before we pass it on to the students. Then we go through the vice chancellor approval. And then our provost takes it to the state board of trustees to get that approval. And then it goes into the student fee as a certification. And that is, it's really a good system to make sure that the students have that package as part of their system, something similar to the funding board or the funding board system.
Additional question? Yes. A follow-up question.
Yeah. Well, it takes time. When I first started working at Washington Tech, the classes were a lot. They are now going as individual classes, so it's been a learning process. But essentially, the technical core program up to the certificate goes to the university, and then they take the general education courses on top of that to get to the associate's degree. So I still think it's too they can get an associate in applied science on the tech campus by taking tech math and technical writing. But if they do that, then that's a training. If they want the associate in science, they need to transition financially transfer because we're all the same institution. Transition over to university and then go on to BA.
We have a question right now.
Yes, we have used money. We have used money for what we call outreach, which has included radio ads and TV ads and print and online things that I don't even begin to understand. But we have spent quite a lot of money.
In fact, one of the things that we're doing at our college is using some of the money during this time to develop videos and other material that will help us be sustainable. And we can use some of those videos to provide outreach. It's important. Language is
That's
important.
the word.
Outreach to the community, to the school, through job fairs and other places.
And we also have two gentlemen that are veterans that work as veteran recruiters to try and increase the number. Because it has, as I'm sure you know, there's some challenge to get into the areas to talk to soldiers before they're but we've invested some money in it.
Storytelling has been a huge part of telling the demand story, and we have done everything we could think of in social media. We have a YouTube page, Demand Workforce. If you ever go on YouTube, take a look. We use a lot of humor in our Native American communities. That's how we connect with one another, like humor and tell jokes. And that's what we did in the first few years. We hired a comedian group. They consist of all natives from Minnesota. It's called 1491s, and it's hilarious. Because you guys gotta watch. If you got some time, we have a Facebook page, Youth Demand Workforce, and we're also on Twitter. And so that's fun.
Dr. Wise from my college, but I would tell you why we're going to see some very positive things in the federal marketing. So we've been working with all of those on testimonials, on some of the things that you see here that we're going around into the labs and doing some videos, some of those that we're going to show that we have those nice labs that people that are doing marketing for the research and
We have a really nice video of one of our female welding students who is now working for a really amazing company called Dynamarine that makes airboats that travel at 106 miles an hour, I believe, and they're being sold to China. And that's not something that you would expect being built in Topeka, Kansas, but they are, and they are very nice high-tech welding robots. So she went through our short welding program and is doing really well at that company.
Well, thank you, John and Jillian and Ray and Glenn for sharing with us some of the really interesting aspects of each of your programs. And I encourage you, as you look at tomorrow's program, to choose breakout sessions that you're going to learn a lot from. I've done my check mark already, and I'll give a little plug since I agreed to be on this panel for Jillian and Ray each have breakout sessions tomorrow, and they're not at the same time. So be sure that you enjoy the Speedway tonight, and that you come back tomorrow really eager to learn from each other. Thank you.